We're ready? Awesome. All right, well, thank you, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I appreciate how many folks are here, both in person, and I see some folks trickling into the online format as well. We're doing a little hybrid meeting tonight, so we have folks at home watching as well. My name's Dave Nolan. I'm the Senior Transportation Planner at the Cape Cod Commission, and I've been the project manager on this Station Ave corridor study since about last year. We had a public meeting last January where we came and met in this room and talked about ideas for the corridor. I'm here tonight to kind of share some of the concepts we've been working on over the last 11 months. So quick meeting announcement, I just mentioned, but this is a hybrid meeting with participants attending in person and remotely. This meeting's also being recorded and will be available on the project website, so you'll be able to check back in if there's something you missed or want to pass it to folks in your neighborhood that couldn't make it tonight. This will live on the website for folks to take a look at. Agenda for tonight, we'll do our welcome and introductions, project overview. We'll review the comments that we received during the last public meeting and the comment period afterwards. Then we'll get into the alternatives discussion. That's going to be the bulk of the presentation here. And then we'll talk about next steps. This project is funded by the Mass Department of Transportation through our federal fiscal year 2023 Unified Planning Work Program. This was voted on by the Metropolitan Planning Organization for our region. Project team, again, I'm Dave Nolan, the Senior Transportation Planner at the Commission. I'm joined also by with Commission staff Colleen Medeiros sitting up here in the front, Joyous Michael, and Evan Costa was out in the hallway introducing folks, hopefully, to this room. Also the town staff, Kathy Williams, your town planner, has been an integral part in this project. Amanda Lima, your town engineer, and then Jeff Colby, DPW director, have all had a hand in this project. So a little project overview. The idea of this project is to develop alternatives that will provide safe and convenient access within the study area for all users of the roadway system and all users of all abilities. There's three main project goals in all of the projects we work on at the Commission. Number one being to improve safety. Number two is to reduce congestion. And number three is accommodating all roadway users. That includes not just motorists, but those walking, those biking, those in wheelchairs, those hard of hearing, and however you want to look at it. Anyone using the roadway network is who we're trying to accommodate here. Our study area is Station Ave corridor study. This extends for a large portion of Station Ave from the Route 6 interchanges to the White's Path Workshop Road intersection, sort of through that business corridor to the Old Townhouse Road intersection, down through the neighborhood area to the schools, including the Long Pond Drive and Regional Ave intersections, and then to the Wood Road intersection. So now we'll get kind of in the January meeting back in this year, 2023. We had a meeting in this room to go over this project. We had 27 virtual attendees, 25 in-person attendees, and we got a lot of public feedback. We did a project overview, and we looked at existing conditions. I walked through the crash history on the corridor. I walked through the speed limits on the corridor, existing land uses, and we did a photo inventory. I took a lot of photos from site visits, and we kind of walked through that together. I wanted to make sure that what I was seeing on this corridor is what folks that use this corridor every day are seeing. We received 60 public comments during the meeting, and then we received another 17 in the month after via email, and all of those comments are actually posted on the project website as well, so you can see what folks were chiming in on, and we took all of these into consideration as we started doing our concept development. I mentioned a second ago, too, I wanted to say this at the beginning. I use Station Ave every day. I live in Yarmouthport. I access all the businesses. I shop at that Stop and Shop. I get pizza from Sweet Tomatoes far too often. So I use this roadway. I see a lot of the issues, and I want to make sure that what I'm seeing is what you're also seeing, so that way we can improve all of those goals that I mentioned on earlier. So going back to that first public meeting, like I said, we received tons of comments. I'm going to start with the ramp area. I kind of broke it down into sections here so we can kind of summarize what we heard. In the ramp area, we heard that lighting would be beneficial at the ramps. I drove to this meeting just about an hour ago and passed through this area. There is no lights at either of the ramps currently, so I think that was a very fair and good comment. Making a left onto Route 6 westbound is difficult. Making a left onto Station Ave is difficult. I think that you could probably say that for the bulk of the corridor, not just this ramp area. Add a second lane southbound from the ramps, I guess heading towards the White's Path intersection, and consider signals at the ramps. So these are just some of the comments. I tried to summarize. Some of these we heard more than once. Lots of good details here that gave us a chance to look at. Then we moved to the business area. We received lots of comments in this area as well. We heard things like extending Station Ave, the northbound right turn lane at the White's Path intersection, so making that right turn lane longer. We heard extending the Station Ave southbound right turn lane at Old Townhouse Road, so in front of the Sunoco station there, extending that right turn lane. We heard that needs to be more education on how to use the two-way left turn lane. We talked a lot about how folks are using that as a travel lane at times, and they're not always using it correctly. Improving connections to the Cape Cod Rail Trail. It's a very awesome feature to have along the Station Ave corridor, is having access to the rail trail. So how can we improve those connections? And better designating left turns throughout the corridor. I mentioned the left turn to the ramp area, but trying to understand where to turn left, who's turning left, and when. School area comments, so kind of heading down towards the DY, high school, middle school section of the corridor. We heard that sidewalks are needed on both sides of the road. We had a comment that we need to improve the crossing at St. Pius Church. We need to improve the drop-off pickup traffic flow at Dennis Yarmouth High School. We heard that we need to encourage or incentivize students that are taking the bus to try to get less vehicles out of the drop-off pickup cycle. Better access management, maybe reducing curb cuts, less access points, kind of uniformity throughout the corridor. And then rectangular rapid flashing beacons at all crossings. Those are the little flashing lights, warning lights at a crosswalk that kind of indicate to vehicles that somebody is trying to cross. So we heard a comment that those should be at all crossings, particularly in the school area. We heard a lot of other comments that weren't so focused just on those areas. Wood Road, we got a lot of comments, and I'm going to summarize it as safety improvements. There was a lot of different ideas, from brush trimming to making it a signal to making it an all-way stop. So we looked at a lot of different options there as well, but I summarized that as safety improvements. We heard that the town should consider doing a Safe Routes to School partnership with the schools. Debris clearing, litter and sand along the sidewalks. There's been some runoff with sand at the sidewalks up near the ramps. I think generally people are seeing a lot of litter and debris on the side of their roads too, so that was something that was mentioned as well. We heard a comment that says redirect traffic to Route 28 down Forest Road via Old Townhouse to try to get vehicles out of that school queue, so redirecting that traffic. We heard a comment saying sidewalks from Route 6A along Union Street to Station Ave. Little bit outside this scope, of course. We're ending at the ramps. I don't think that's a terrible idea. I think sidewalks are a great feature to have on any road. And then also outside of this project as well, but we did hear some comments at this meeting, or at our previous meeting, that Old Main Street in Yarmouth needs some safety improvements. There's this known speeding and crash history there. So I like to document everything, whether it's part of this project or not. Maybe it's something we can revisit down the road. So what sort of spurred this project was a crash history along this corridor. So over the course of 3 years, from 2018 to 2020, there were 162 reported crashes in the Station Ave area. 64 of those were in the interchange area. That includes that sea of orange you see up on the screen. So some of those crashes are on the actual highway. We did break that out into a little bit more, detailed look. White's Path at Workshop Road had 19 crashes over 3 years. That actually made it stick out as the number 47th highest crashed intersection in our region. So again, when something sticks out in our top 50, that's when it really strikes a chord, and we really want to try to get involved to see what we can do to improve that. Old Townhouse had 14 crashes during that period of time. Long Pond, Regional Ave, that area had 16 crashes during that time. A lot of those were rear ends. I think that kind of makes sense with the congestion of the school area there. And then Wood Road had 15 crashes just at that intersection alone over 3 years, so averaging about 5 a year, which is far too high if you ask me. So the 3 years that we analyzed for crashes, fortunately there were no fatalities in any of these crashes, but there was one along Station Ave in 2014, just north of Old Townhouse Road. So I do like to mention that, just so that we are aware that just because it hasn't happened in the window we're looking at, it has happened and it could happen again. So this is why we're trying to get ahead of this by making these improvements. I broke out the crashes a little bit more. The northern ramp, so the Route 6 westbound ramp, had 7 crashes over this 3-year period. And then that southern ramp, Route 6 eastbound, had 17 crashes over that 3-year period, which would be very close to that 19 crashes that White's Path Workshop Road has to kind of crack our top 50. So it's right there. Some key crash notes: 35 of the crashes resulted in an injury. 70% of crashes were rear end or angle collisions, which tells me that congestion and left turning vehicles are really causing some of the issues with the crashes we're seeing. 81% of crashes occurred during the daylight. Again, makes me think of congestion and just how busy the roadway is. There were 4 non-motorist crashes north of Old Townhouse Road during this 3-year period. So that's a bike or a pedestrian being hit by a vehicle. And then there was 2 non-motorist crashes at the Long Pond Drive intersection down by the school during this 3-year window. So crashes always, like I said, kind of stick out to us. There's safety challenges, obviously, and so we had this public meeting, we met with the town, we reviewed all the comments, and we started thinking about what are the next steps. So there's a process that is called a road safety audit that MassDOT kind of spearheads, and we work with them to conduct these audits. We do a couple a year throughout our region. We always try to find high crash locations to do these at. This year we prioritized doing a road safety audit at the White's Path Road intersection on Station Ave. So a road safety audit is a formal safety review of an existing or planned road or intersection. During the audit, an independent multidisciplinary team identifies potential safety issues and opportunities for safety improvements. So the commission staff organized this road safety audit. We worked with Town of Yarmouth, so we had planning and engineering and DPW at the meeting. We had police and fire at the meeting, and then we had a bicycle representative, and we even had folks from MassDOT Traffic and Safety that were at this meeting. What we do is we take an in-depth look at all the crashes that occurred at this intersection. We then go do a site visit to show these folks from MassDOT who are not as familiar with this intersection as us. We do a site visit, we document it with photos, we watch the light cycles, and we got to see a lot of interesting things in our hour out there. So we come back, we've put together a list of recommendations. I have it on one of these poster boards that we'll get to in a little bit too. A lot of good recommendations to improve safety at this intersection. Recommendations can be as small as painting a crosswalk to make it more visible to complete reconstruction. So we look at everything from high and low cost to short and long term. So I'm at sort of my first breaking point. Before I get into the concept development. So now this is where I'm going to start showing some cool graphics for those that have looked ahead in the packet, probably know some of the things I'm going to talk about. But before I get to that, I do just want to open it up. Does anybody have any clarifying questions so far? I would say the meat's coming up. But if you wanted to stop now for a clarifying question, I'm happy to do that. Everyone wants to see what's coming next. I like that. All right, so we come out of the road safety audit, we meet with the town, we've talked with Mass DOT, they own a portion of this roadway up by the interchanges, and we get into our concept development. So the first concept I'm going to share, we're going to work from north to south along the corridor here. The first concept I'm showing here is a traffic signal concept at the intersection of Route 6 westbound at Station Avenue. I have notes, so I just want to catch up with you guys. So we looked at, we heard all those comments, and I think one of them earlier was that there needed to be a signal. So that's something we definitely wanted to look into to improve safety at this intersection. So commission staff organized traffic counts, so that way we could go out there and see how many vehicles are using this. We counted this intersection for several days, and it met a traffic signal warrant through the state's eyes. So there's a certain number of volume, certain number of vehicles that need to be passing through for it to meet a signal warrant. It met that. If it meets a signal warrant and we're going to analyze looking at a signal, we have to, through Mass DOT's lens, look at also proposing a roundabout at the intersection. So on the next slides coming up, you'll see the roundabout as well. So we mocked up what a traffic signal could look like at this intersection, and I've offered here sort of our cost-benefit analysis of doing that. So it improves safety and congestion very well. It greatly improves bike and ped accommodations because there are none today. With this concept, there would be those. And then it also impacts property a little bit, as there would be some minor takings to build this out. So I'll kind of just show you how to kind of read this graphic. The orange you see kind of on either edge, that is off-road facilities. That is a sidewalk along that southern side of the road, or I guess western side of the road, that sidewalk. And then on the northern side, that little bit of a thicker orange, that would be a shared use path. That's an area for where bicycles could get off the roadway and safely travel along Station Avenue. So we've got crossings in here for that, for those facilities. And then it's a three-way stop. So vehicles coming off the highway would have to stop here before proceeding left. And then vehicles along Station Ave would have to use the signal as well. Again, cost-benefit analysis here, and then I need to always say that these are all draft and for planning purposes only. There's been some engineering done in the background to see if feasibly these would work, but the design of these is conceptual, so these are not ready for construction at this point. I guarantee you that. So at the same intersection, the westbound ramp, here I show the roundabout concept. And as I just said, if we're looking at a signal, we have to look at a roundabout as well. That's kind of a requirement we have with the state. So we look at a traffic signal, we look at a roundabout. I can hold on here. I know everyone has it in their packet too, and we also have bigger copies up at the table so we can come around and walk to towards the end here. Cost-benefit analysis. It improves safety even a little bit more than a traffic signal does. It reduces congestion about the same as a traffic signal, and it improves bike and pedestrian accommodations about as well as the traffic signal. However, it does impact property a bit more than the traffic signal. It's a little bit wider, a little bit bigger. There would be more takings involved to build this out. But both of these concepts work. So one measure we look at is level of service. These intersections, both the signal and the roundabout, improve the intersection through safety, congestion, and the bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. Both limit, they both have a little bit of takings, the property impacts there. So sort of that cost benefit. Which one would you prefer is going to be the question eventually, based on kind of this information that you're seeing. So we go to the southern ramp. So this is the Route 6 eastbound off ramp, and I'm going to offer you the exact same two concepts here, a traffic signal and a roundabout. So same thing, a sidewalk being proposed on that western side of the road, a shared use path for bikes to be able to use an off-road facility on that eastern side of the road, and then the signal here to stop traffic. The difference here on this one is that right turn lane actually has a stop light here. So it would stop the right turning vehicles, so the yield would be gone in this concept. But they would get that red time from this approach, and then they would be able to travel onto Station Ave unimpeded. This works kind of well. There's that left turn lane and a through lane. There's a lot of pavement there already. It almost sort of functions like this today with that wide shoulder that people use as a through lane now. This sort of just improves that safety because now it's an actual lane. You don't have to guess where the vehicle in front of you, if they are going straight or are they turning left, because not everybody likes to use their blinker. Benefits: it improves safety, congestion, and bike and pedestrian accommodations quite well. Again, there are some minor property impacts because we'd have to make this intersection just a little bit wider to fit all of the accommodations we're trying to fit here. We go to the roundabout concept. This one has kind of that same build. It has a through lane, basically, that you would just kind of travel on the outside of the roundabout here, and it has that left turning lane to kind of separate the lefts from the rights. This helps kind of improve the traffic flow. We look at a lot of different styles of these, if it's just a single lane or a multi-lane all the way around. This, we're doing the one through lane with a left turn lane. Again, bike and pedestrian infrastructure on the outskirts of the roundabout here to get people off the road. Again, improves safety slightly more than the traffic signal. Roundabouts really do slow vehicles down. It improves congestion and bike and ped accommodations, but again, it impacts the property surrounding it a little bit more than the traffic signal does due to the size. Moving further south, we hit the White's Path road intersection. So this slide here shows all the recommendations from that road safety audit I mentioned earlier. The road safety audit, again, that was that audit we did with DOT and the town of Yarmouth, these are some of the direct recommendations that came out of that report. So extending the right turn storage lane on White's Path and left turn lane on Station Ave southbound, so giving those vehicles a longer area to queue. Constructing larger pedestrian islands to improve visibility. We heard that they are really difficult to see and vehicles are running over them more frequently than I guess we're even aware of, because if no one's there and no one else gets hit, that doesn't get reported, they can just drive off and it doesn't get registered as a crash. Upgrading traffic signal equipment and improving lighting. Again, lighting has been kind of a common theme on this corridor, so improving the lighting there, updating the traffic signal equipment. It's fair to say, and I'll probably hit on this again, if we do anything at the ramps, we have to do something at White's Path. If you just build a signal or a roundabout at those ramps, leaving White's Path as it is, these aren't going to work as well as we would like them to. So there's going to need to be something done at White's Path to create some uniformity in this area. Signage upgrades at and approaching the intersection, kind of let people know where they are, where they're heading to. Installing a flashing yellow left turn arrow. I have a graphic on that in a little bit. Limit access to right in, right out at the northern Mobile driveway. Mobile has 2 driveways right now, fronting Station Ave as well as back access to Workshop Road. So reducing that northern driveway, the one that's almost in the signal, to right in, right out could go a long way in reducing some of the crashes or close calls we're seeing at this location. Improving bike and pedestrian facilities, including sidewalks, shared use path, and upgraded pedestrian countdown timers, and then evaluating street lighting at the intersection. So here is White's Path as it currently sits today. And here is sort of a reconstruction concept that improves the intersection, much like the other concepts I showed earlier. So some of the key differences between what it looks like today and what I'm showing here in this graphic is we're removing those channelized right turn lanes that sort of create this fast flowing yield control through crosswalks that aren't signal controlled as well. And we're also proposing that that right turn lane becomes a through right lane. So your vehicles in this area can store to go through in both these right lanes. This would reduce the number of vehicles queued up past a Stop and Shop and then under the Cape Cod Rail Trail Bridge and then back towards Dunkin' Donuts as well. So it kind of gives that space. With signal timing, you'll be able to move through this intersection well. So if you are the right turning vehicle, you sort of have to queue pretty far down by Stop and Shop today if there's a long queue. So you'll be able to get in this lane as well, and your time to go really isn't reduced at all. But other than reducing the channelized lanes, because like I said, the benefit there is the crosswalks currently on those do not have any sort of control. So when you push the push button, you're actually pushing it from like in here where the island is. You can't push anything from over here. So you're kind of walking there around a blind curve. So vehicles really can't see if somebody's coming around there.
Can I just ask
Sure.
a question? If you have the 2 straight ahead heading north on Station Ave, they're merging to become 1 lane right after that intersection, though.
Sorry, they can hear you on Zoom, sorry.
If you have the 2 lanes heading north, they have to merge right after that intersection, though, correct?
They would, but
Okay, back to 1 lane.
yes, but we're looking, so this isn't, again, draft purposes only for the
Right.
concepts. There would be a bit of an area here to try to allow them to not be fighting for that first position in the intersection. We would push that up a bit of a ways.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and it is something, we talked about that just a week ago, maybe with Kathy, so I know that that's a topic. We're going to try. That's the best I get. Yes, sir.
Question too. So on southbound on Station Avenue, next to the yellow light, the yellow line in the middle, we watched like 2 or 3 cars go straight through that intersection and then into the oncoming traffic on the south side of the intersection.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to discourage that?
So just overall, I mean, the concept just kind of shows the lane markings here. Overall, I mean, improving lighting, just signage in general too, just will reduce those pedestrian islands too, with this crossing treatment here. It's going to sort of tighten up the intersection. It's not going to feel as large. I feel like it probably looks kind of large in a graphic like this, but it's going to feel a lot tighter without those channelized lanes. So just better lane designation, just overall signage, the whole thing. I mean, we wouldn't stop any improvements right here outside of the intersection. Those would extend quite a ways, and anything that gets done here could probably be coupled in with the ramps as well. So it would be a larger project here. But all right, so I'll go to the cost benefit of this. It improves safety, congestion, and bike and pedestrian accommodations a bit. You won't see it get that kind of second level that the total, new construction's seeing, because there is some, amenities out there today, but this would improve safety and congestion a bit based on a lot of the modeling we've done. There would be some property impacts as we try to build out that shared use path along the edges, and the sidewalk on the eastern side, the western side of the road as well. All right, so the next intersection here is Old Townhouse Road, and I'm showing you just a graphic kind of in its current layout. Before I get to the concept, a lot of the things that we're recommending at Old Townhouse Road are the same recommendations you would see in a standard roadway safety audit that we're recommending at White's Path. So a flashing yellow arrow, I've got a graphic here on the side that kind of explains what that is. Reviewing the pedestrian infrastructure and countdown timers. Review or improving the signal timing. Retroreflective backplates to make the signal equipment stand out more, especially during those tougher times of day to see. Signage directing to Route 28 via Old Townhouse Road, and crossing upgrades, shortening the distances of these crossings. We'd be looking to sort of kind of remove, if we could, this right turn channelized lane. Again, people are trying to cross here kind of on a blind curve, so if we could kind of bring that up to the intersection, there'd need to be a little bit of work done on this island here to make that not so tight of a turn, but that would improve the pedestrian accommodations here greatly. Overall, from our analysis, the Old Townhouse Road intersection actually functions quite well, and the crashes here really aren't that bad. I don't want any crashes. I will put that on the record. However, most of them were the, rear ends. They were minor collisions. This intersection functions pretty well compared to the other intersections in this corridor. But when we are looking at alternatives, we do have to look at the roundabout as well. So this is a very conceptual look at what a roundabout would look like if it was sort of just placed at this intersection. And here are the cost benefits. It improves safety and congestion. It doesn't improve safety and congestion as much as the other roundabouts do, because I mentioned before those intersections are a lot worse currently than this one is right now. It improves the bike and ped accommodations, but property impacts are getting all three. I guess traffic lights is kind of how I look at these. It's doing a lot of encroaching on the land around the intersection. And I'm here to say that I would not be recommending this treatment at this intersection, but I wanted to explain that this is something we look at when we're looking at all these intersections. We don't think the cost benefit at this intersection is worth sort of the time and funding to do this. I don't think that this needs to be done at this intersection. I think it can be a lot of these smaller improvements, cheaper improvements, could go a long way in improving this intersection as well. Okay, now the fun part. Roundabout versus rotary. I have to talk about this for a minute since I am proposing a couple of roundabouts along this area. A lot of people do get roundabouts and rotaries confused. A rotary is what you see on the left here. That is the Mashpee Rotary over by the Mashpee Commons. That has a 300-foot diameter. The roundabout on the right is at Route 149, Old Exit 5. That has 115 foot in diameter. The difference besides size of a roundabout and a rotary is sort of the deflection, the way you enter the circle. On a rotary, it's more of a merge, like a highway merge. It's encouraging high speeds and lots of vehicles. The roundabout brings you really tight into the roundabout and then kind of turns you into it. So you have to go slower to enter it. So collisions at roundabouts are a lot less severe and a lot less likely than at rotaries. So I just want to make sure we're not getting those confused. Here's a real life example that was on the Cape. This is at Cotuit Road at South Sandwich Road in Sandwich. On the left, it was a stopped controlled intersection from the side streets here. The 4 years before the roundabout was constructed, there were 27 crashes at this intersection, 5 of them resulting in injuries. In the 4 years after construction of the roundabout, there were 6 crashes with 0 injuries. So there really is a benefit to improving safety with a roundabout if designed and built correctly, which we will make sure happens if that's the way we move here. But I just wanted to offer, a location where not so many folks were sold, and then this actually worked out really well. It's a really good example of a well-constructed roundabout that improves safety. So that's my tangent. I won't go back to that unless you'd like to talk more. But I'll move to the last kind of intersection area of the corridor here, which is Station Ave at Wood Road. So we heard in the public meeting that there needed to be safety improvements. We heard to look at a stoplight, signal. It did not meet a signal warrant when we did a 12-hour count. So myself and Evan, who's here with us tonight, we spent several hours out at this intersection counting and observing the traffic, and it did not meet, based on standards, the number of vehicles to put in an all-way traffic light. However, it might potentially meet an all-way stop. And the reason it might meet that is based on the crash history. If there's 5 crashes per year over a 3-year period, which this exactly meets. I think it was 15 over the 3 years, which is 5 a year. And then future growth patterns. So as volumes do increase everywhere, we think that an all-way stop could very well be feasible here. And while not ready to kind of recommend that yet, that's a conversation we want to keep having with the town. Is that something the town would like to look at? We will go back out and do more traffic counts, probably towards the end of the school year before the school gets out, and then maybe even again in the summer during that peak season as well, to kind of support whether or not we should look at an all-way stop at this intersection. But other recommendations for this intersection include installing a crosswalk across Wood Road connecting the existing sidewalks. Right now there's the sidewalk along Station Ave, but there's actually no crosswalk at the intersection. That could go a long way in just improving, the visibility of the intersection, lets vehicles approaching know that there's something here. There could be people walking or biking. Consider expanding the shoulder width for bicycles at and approaching the intersections. During that 12-hour count, we saw lots of people walking and biking, so just giving them a little extra space along the road, because there is some wider shoulders up in the business district of this corridor. So if we can do that, that would be a great improvement. Brush trimming to improve sightlines for motorists. There's a lot of encroachment, especially there's a little bit of a bend in the road there when you're trying to look at out of Wood Road, Station Ave, looking southbound. It can be really tricky to see, tough to move out of. So if we can keep up on brush trimming, that can go a long way. And then installing retro-reflective black backplates on the overhead flasher to improve the visibility. So there's the flashing light above the intersection right now. If we can add the retro-reflective backplates, it stands out that much more. It's much more visible, especially during those tougher times of day to see, nighttime, or when that sun's just coming up or going down. So then we have several kind of corridor-wide concepts that we're also recommending. One of them is shown in this graphic here, would be utility pole and or tree relocation or removal on the northwest corner of the CVS driveway. This is, if anybody ever tried to take a left out of here, it's very challenging. Not just because of the utility pole and the trees, but those certainly don't help. By the time you can actually see what's around them, you're in the lane. I took this photo Monday, and just several cars couldn't get out for 10 plus minutes. In the queue here was back 5 or 6 cars just trying to get out of the driveway. And I really think the sight distance causes that issue, because it makes people hesitant to want to go. When they feel like they can, they're not quite sure. Another thing was, what do we do with the two-way left turn lane? So there was a lot of ideas kicked around. We're kind of recommending at this point to consider repurposing it into designated left turn pockets. So this would be sort of leaving it kind of as it is, but with paint maybe sort of identifying where vehicles can pull into the left turn lane to queue to then turn left into the business driveway that they're looking to access. We're hoping that this can discourage vehicles from using it as a travel lane. You see far too often a vehicle flying past the left turn arrows because they just want to jump to the top of the queue at the White's Path intersection. So trying to discourage that as best we can through some cheaper methods. We looked at the feasibility of installing a median along Station Avenue. While it has benefits with reducing the number of, angle collisions, crashes. Oop. Hey, that's me. But the tricky part with the median is finding those areas for vehicles to turn around. So you can provide left turns, but when you're trying to find areas for larger vehicles, think fire trucks, tractor trailers, those size school buses, if they need to turn around, you need to then create sort of these bump outs along the roadway, which would then encroach on property impacts. It would become a much more costly project. So I think that there's a benefit, at least at this point, to trying to just repurpose the two-way left turn lane rather than installing a median that's going to essentially live forever. I think this could be something that could be tried, and if it works, maybe we can then come back to reconsidering a median and then where those bump outs could be. But right now, we're kind of saying not the best idea. But I want to hear from you at some point. I want to know that is a good idea. Let's revisit it again, or thank you for looking, whatever it might be. Some other concepts along the corridor is improving lighting. We've talked about that now probably 3 or 4 times. But under the Route 6 underpass, there's no lighting. There is facilities. There is what is technically a sidewalk under there. We did walk it. But with all the concepts we're bringing forward with a shared use path or, improving the sidewalk, having lighting under there, making sure it's visible, people can see vehicles and pedestrians walking. At the ramp intersections themselves, I mentioned earlier, there's no lighting currently at these intersections. So something simple like that could go a long way in improving safety. And then the White's Path intersection, those were areas that really stuck out. I guess there's a conversation to be had about lighting as you get further down towards the schools, kind of those neighborhood areas. So I want to hear feedback on that as well. Is that something we missed, or is there other locations that need improved lighting? And then access management, which is we're talking about considering reducing the left turns out of driveways and encouraging interconnections between businesses. Maybe there's a chance where some driveways we can say right turn only or just no left turns. With that two-way left turn lane, as we redesignate that, you kind of create these areas where vehicles are supposed to turn left. Maybe it's not every driveway, but that's where the interconnections come in. The interconnection, this area actually has some really good ones already. An interconnection would be, think about the CVS, Wendy's, Sweet Tomatoes, and Advanced Auto driveway. You can pull in there and access all these businesses from one access point. So making sure that any new businesses are maybe trying to connect to existing driveways and encouraging that, and then maybe reducing the number of driveways along Station Avenue. And certainly not trying to encourage any more going forward in the future. So then we have some school area concepts as well. Consider allowing only right turns out of the school during peak drop-off and pickup times. Improving bike and pedestrian infrastructure to encourage alternative modes of travel. Encouraging DUI schools to partner with MassDOT Safe Routes to School program. They can help them do walk audits and then seek funding for projects to and from the school. Consider a paved pull-off along the school property to get school-bound vehicles out of the travel lane. Installing rectangular rapid flashing beacon at the crosswalk in front of DY, as well as the St. Pius Church. I think any crossing kind of in this area where the schools are should have some sort of warning treatment. The new signal there has a push button down by the new middle school. So in improving the crossing accommodations in this area would go a long way. And then extending the existing shared use path. So right now there's the new shared use path in front of one of the schools down there, but extending that to the intersection of Regional Ave and Haywood Ave to kind of cover the entire school area. So there's some uniformity and not a need to cross from the bike path over to the sidewalk on the other side of the roadway, just kind of having that through that school area. Potential multimodal accommodations, recommendations, this is corridor wide. Shared use path on the east side of Station Ave from the ramps to Old Townhouse Road. I've talked about that throughout all the concepts here. Sidewalk on the west side of Station Ave from the ramps to Old Townhouse. The shared use path in front of the school property again. And then the last one here is a crossing improvement for basically the Cape Cod Rail Trail. on Station Ave. So I have two kind of ideas here, and I'd love to hear feedback on this in a little bit. But option A is sort of an off-ramp from the Cape Cod Rail Trail on the west side of Station Ave. So either along the railroad right-of-way or along the CVS right-of-way. I'll go ahead one slide. Here's an example of that in Dennis at Route 134. It's just, instead of coming up and over the bridge, you can just kind of sneak down here and get to where you need to go, access to businesses. If you're coming from Dennis and you want to get to the CVS Plaza there, you can cross Station Ave above grade over the bridge, come down and then get off. You never have to come in contact with Station Ave, and it avoids that conflict with vehicles. The other concept is an at-grade crossing with a pedestrian hybrid beacon signal south of the CVS and Cape Cod Rail Trail parking lot driveways. So I'll show you that as well. This is a real-life example right in Falmouth. This is connecting the Shining Sea Bikeway to Goodwill Park in Falmouth. This is a pedestrian hybrid beacon that was installed not long ago. This sort of is a signal that only operates when it's the button's pushed by somebody looking to cross the road. So you would have free flow through this area at all times of the day unless somebody's trying to cross at this intersection. I put in, this is more for your packet if you wanted to kind of see how a pedestrian hybrid beacon works. There's also one on Route 6 in Eastham that was constructed a couple years ago. That's that 4-lane section of Route 6, which is tricky in different ways than Station Ave, but you know, with all the pavement out here, stopping traffic to allow somebody to cross safely is an alternative we'd be comfortable with in this area. And here's a conceptual kind of graphic of where that would be roughly. You know, again, planning purposes only, just to give you a rough idea of where we're talking and kind of what the benefit would be. So again, if you were looking to access, I guess, CVS or the businesses in here, and you were on the rail trail, you would come down through the sidewalks, paths here, push the button and cross. And what's so important with getting a crossing treatment on Station Ave is Barnstable is going to be joining the Cape Cod Rail Trail network within the next 2 years. So Station Ave is no longer going to sort of be kind of the end of the Cape Cod Rail Trail. It's going to be a destination along the Cape Cod Rail Trail. So now you're going to have people coming in from Hyannis and Barnstable and trying to get all the way out to the Outer Cape. There could be the need to want to get off here and grab a beverage at CVS, whatever it might be. Advil if you don't bike much. Whatever you need. So just knowing that the rail trail is expanding, and this is a key portion of this facility, we want to make sure folks can get around safely here when they're getting off the path. Show the benefits. It improves safety greatly. Doesn't really do much to congestion. It only stops traffic when somebody's trying to cross, so it would only stop periodically. It improves the bike and pedestrian accommodations quite greatly, and they would be very, very minor, not even worth noting up here, property impacts. And it's the first alternative with one money sign for the cost. So this is a smaller thing that could be done. Okay. Those are all the concepts I have to share. That was a lot. But the next steps. So we want to review and summarize any input we get through public comments, which is anything folks would like to share with us tonight, or they want to share with us for the next month. We're going to have a public comment period open until January 13th, just so we can, you know, keep collecting information, ideas, meeting with the town, meeting with DOT, meet with the chamber and the businesses to kind of get their thoughts as well. We'll do some concept refinement based on what we hear. If you tell us absolutely no on something and there's some good reasons why, then we will absolutely reconsider what we're proposing to make sure we get the right alternative for this area. Coordinating with the town and DOT, especially the DOT at the ramps, they do own that infrastructure. And then we'd be looking to have a draft and final report sometime later this winter or earlier this spring. So, I've done all the talking. So now it's time to hear from other folks. So we're going to do a couple things here. We have some maps of all the concepts. Everything that you've seen so far is somewhere in this room. So we definitely want to hear feedback from those folks that are here. I want to know which concepts you liked and why you liked them. I want to know which concepts you did not like and why you didn't like them. I want to see, do the concepts fit within the community character, and do they actually address the issues that you see in this area? And is there anything that we didn't show that you think we should look into a little bit further? Is there anything we missed? Is there anything we didn't hit on quite enough? I want to hear that. So I'm happy to kind of take questions here and through Zoom. I think I'll start with the Zoom participants because they won't be able to walk around the room with us and do the activity. But then I'll open it to questions for the room, and then we can kind of get up, stretch our legs, and you can have some one-on-one conversations with myself and staff about what we talked about. Sound fair? So I'd start with the Zoom participants. If anybody has a question, be happy, or a comment, I'm happy to take that. Oh yeah, you'd have to raise your hand and then we can unmute you and call on you. Well, thank you. If you think of something, just raise your hand and we can see the screen over here and come back to you. I'll open it up to any clarifying questions in the room. Amanda will bring a mic around so folks can hear. And
Good evening, great presentation. Thank you very much for your work on this important issue. One question I do have is, what impact do you see the new gas station convenience store having on this traffic pattern?
it's not going to improve the existing conditions. So I mean, and that's where I kind of think about two things here, right? Well, we looked at this corridor right now because there's a crash history and growth. There's a lot happening. We were talking just before the meeting, there's a lot happening in Yarmouth right now, not just talking Station Ave, this Route 28 projects and so on and so forth. But obviously the construction there, knowing that's going to bring more vehicles and more access points to the roadway, kind of trying to get ahead of that with, like I said, designating that two-way left center turn lane with some, locations to allow the left turns. I know one of the driveways is going to be across from the Stop and Shop driveway, so maybe that's an area that becomes more of an intersection in a way. You're allowing lefts in and out. Maybe they can kind of offset each other a little bit. That could be helpful. But then again, trying to get that pedestrian infrastructure as well, bringing in another new business, folks in the rail trail, there's going to be a need or a want to kind of access there and get what you need. So just with everything, the expansion, obviously the expansion of the schools brought this upon us too. Just with more traffic, we wanted to look at this roadway holistically. So it has an impact, and I'm hoping that, with improvements to Old Townhouse and White's Path, I think it can improve the whole corridor.
Thank you very much for the great information. On slide 38 in the presentation that you gave us today, it said considering only right turns out of the schools during peak drop-off and pickup times. As a grandparent that's in that neighborhood a lot babysitting, if that was the case at like Station Ave and the new intermediate middle school, if I'm only allowed a right, they go literally 10 feet, they're going to take a left into Captain Nickerson, which they're not going to be able to do because the traffic's waiting to go down and it's going to cause a bottleneck. So I would reconsider that only right turns, because they're going to want to cut through the Captain's area to get back down by the high school or wherever they're going. And then the other one was, I know you talked about crosswalks in front of CVS. I think having the ramp come down would be a much better, safer, because we've got so many intersections. I just don't see people paying attention to that because they're thinking about turning or Dunkin' Donuts or wherever they're going, and it's just a lot from White's Path down to Old Townhouse, just from driving it along with you.
I appreciate that, and that's what I was looking for. Two kind of concepts, very different concepts, just kind of hearing the feedback. Which one do folks prefer? And if there's not a preference, that's fine too. But I appreciate the comments.
Thank you.
I was wondering, does the state own the property on either side of Route 6?
I believe yes, is what we talked about with them.
My idea is, I would prefer that we had ramps, a full cloverleaf like Dennis does. I think that roundabouts for that volume of traffic is going to just really slow things down horribly and back it up into the highway. And I'm thinking, if the state already owns the property, they could build, there'd only be two new ramps, one eastbound, one west. And while that work was being done, it wouldn't impact Station Ave at all. And I also think people from out of state that have never seen a rotary, let alone a roundabout, would freak out. And if they're, the ramps in Dennis work perfectly. There's no, problem that I can see, and I've gone that way many times. So I was just curious if that had been considered or could be.
It has not yet been considered. Could it be? Yes, absolutely. We can certainly talk with DOT. I don't want you to get your hopes up. I don't think that they're going to love the idea of doing all that clearing and trying to do that, but it's certainly something that we can broach with them and see if, there is a chance that we could look at that.
I'm sure that there will be people that won't like it, but as I said, most of the work could be done without impacting the road at all until they were ready to open. And as I said, people from all over the country driving on interstate highways are used to ramps like that. And I think that it would be a very easy thing for people to adjust to.
I appreciate the comment. It's certainly something. Oh, we have a Zoom hand raised. How are we going to do that? Tom Nick.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much for doing your presentation. It's lovely. I would just like to pick up the comment that young lady was just talking about. I'm sure that if you look back in the MassDOT history, which we have quite a abundance of, we, we're the first town in all of our state and country to have the first rotary. So we have plenty of history on how traffic works. And if you look at our neighbor to the east, Dennis, when they did their expansion of the cloverleaf, you can probably see the crash patterns go down dramatically. I've been here for a long time, and I remember those two ramps, and I remember stopping and jerking and seeing other people crash, and it was an everyday event. So I think the possibility of looking on making a 4 cloverleaf entrance to the highway, which we all know gets very busy in 10 weeks of the year, and we really need to move traffic. One of the whole things, the purpose of MassDOT is to keep traffic moving. It's one of the worst things we can do is we can stop traffic. The roundabouts are perfect for that because they keep traffic moving. And if we put lights up and down the station corridor, it's really just going to hinder the traffic from moving. The clearing of the land, granted it's an issue, but I think the safety of the public could mitigate some tree planting in other places that we could surely find some to do. So again, I think it's very crucial that you bring these comments that lady has suggested to your superiors and put that in. It's you have the data from our neighbor to the east. That 2-leaf clover is a very choke point. People have to cross over the lane to get where they're going to go on the highway. We want people just to veer off and go on to the highway. And I think that's dramatically important. So thank you very much. It's a wonderful presentation, and we definitely need improvement in this corridor. And I think you'll get the answers by our community speaking up and letting them know. They know the traffic patterns better than anybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. And all right, I think we should definitely try to consider this concept, and we'll look further into that. Is there any other comments or questions from Zoom? Seeing none right now, but I'd open it up to maybe another couple questions, and then I think we should get up, stretch our legs, and walk around the room and look at some of these posters and these concepts and really dive into a little bit more of the details, and we can have some one-on-one conversations as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. Mark Forrest, I'm a selectman here in town and a county commissioner. First of all, I want to thank the Cape Cod Commission and staff for doing this work. I think you've done a great job in giving us plenty to think about. one of the advantages that I have as a selectman is that people will text me questions that they have. And so, on behalf of Dave from Dennis, who's interested in this project, he's asking me, can you ask Mark why a roundabout wasn't considered for Station Ave and White's Path?
So, it was considered, and I think that we weren't ready to show any sort of graphic had we looked at that as this meeting crept up on us. The property impacts would be quite substantial right there if we did a roundabout at that intersection. There would probably be the need for it to be a little bit wider than just a single lane roundabout, so then the property impacts go even bigger than the concepts that we've already shown kind of at the ramps. Sort of the reason there, we're looking at improvements to the ramps, feeding into White's Path. We don't want to sort of overkill it with the roundabouts as well. I think that can be tricky as well. They work when done correctly. The signal, there's some minor improvements that could go a long way in improving that there. So at this point, we weren't really thinking about a roundabout, but something that we can certainly talk more about, especially when we get to a final report here.
Thanks for that answer. I don't want anybody to construe from my comments that this is was a question from the Board of Selectmen. This is just, like I said, people are texting me questions. A couple of you've already answered. And once again, I want to thank you for being here, for doing this work. This is a project that is a priority for the Board of Selectmen, and we're glad that you're here. And I would encourage all Yarmouth residents to weigh in, provide comments, and really give some good feedback and guidance to our friends at the commission. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for that sort of segue. I have on here on this slide, all comments are welcomed and will be considered as part of this report. Public comment period ends January 13th, 2024. That doesn't mean if you email me on January 14th, I won't consider it. Here's my contact information as well, david.nolan@capecodcommission.org. We have a website, capecodcommission.org/stationav. You can see the first public meeting. You'll be able to see this one as we get a recording here. I posted all of the comments from the first public meeting. I'm assuming we'll do something very similar to that after this one. And you have my email, so reach out to me, give me a call, and let me know kind of your ideas, thoughts, if you can't get everything out tonight, or if you have a new idea when you travel it tomorrow, or up and through mid-January. So I'm happy to take comments still, and I'm happy to kind of go around. I'll give Zoom kind of one last call, because we'll end up cutting the Zoom feed when we go around the room and just kind of chat. I'm seeing none, so I think we're good to end. This is for the recording. I think we're good to end the recording portion of this, and if we can kind of get up and stretch our legs and come meet staff up at these tables. Come check out these poster boards we have in the back. We have pens and sticky notes on the poster boards. If you see something you like, tell us. If you see something you disagree with, tell us. If you have a new idea you don't see, tell us. And come up to staff and have a conversation.